original plan was to have the state, the counties, and the students each pay 1/3 of the cost of attending community college. On average, state funding has risen to cover only 23% of the cost, and students are paying 39% this year. Do you support increasing state funding to reduce the student share of the cost? And are there alternative funding models that should be considered for community colleges? Mr. Shea.
Yeah. As a member of the Board of Regents of the university system, and
Okay, we turned it off.
as a member of the university system board and as chair of the board, we struggled with the question of tuition versus quality, and it's a real dilemma. The idea, and we did it, was to freeze tuition and make the schools more affordable for more people. That's great, and we did that, and I think it had a great effect on the state. At the same time, our universities and colleges wanted the quality to stay high. So you have to have a funding model which enables both to happen, and a prioritization that enables both to happen. I understand that completely. So we need to look for new sources of funds, dedicated sources of funds, so that you do both. We do need to reduce the student share, but as we do that, we need to make sure that we're properly funded. Now, the CAVE formula is more than 20 years old, and it's based on, as I understand it, I didn't work in detail with it, but as I understand it, it's based on the per student allocation from the university's system, the USM system. And I'm here to tell you, I was responsible for those allocations in the university system, and they need to be overhauled. We were very careful to point out, as I was completing my term as chair, that they need to be looked at and looked at hard, that the allocations were off. They did not take into account things like laboratories and cost of education and other aspects, and the pure per student allocation was off. So if that's off, your allocations are off, and they need to be looked at very carefully too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Well, since I'm about to go into the budget in Prince George's County, and I know Dr. Dukes is going to ask for more money, I certainly want the state to pay more. No, I really do think we should. Clearly, the question was whether, in fact, we think the state should pay more or whether we should raise the tuition for students. We don't want to do that. I mean, Prince George's County, as I said, just invested in trying to get at least 500 students in Prince George's County to go to the community college for free. When we did our gaming legislation in Prince George's County, we made sure a portion of that increased the amount that we're giving to our community college, because it's a great investment for the students and returning students in the county. But at the state, we have to do more. And it is a matter of prioritizing how that money goes down. Because what the state doesn't give, then the community college still have to serve the population in their areas, and you do that. But it also means at the county level, we're looking for ways on how we can get more money to the community college. I think at the state level, we need to do more. We need to demand more. And as governor, since I've worked it at the local level, I'm telling you, with all the experience, I was on appropriations as the budget committee along the same lines as Rich. I think we have to, right here in the Capitol, make a commitment to not only the community college, but our four-year colleges also.
Thank you. Mr. Jealous.
First, to answer the question directly, of course, we'll make sure that our community colleges are more affordable to our students. What's happened to young people, I'm going to take the rest of the 2 minutes. What's happened to young people over the last 40 years across my lifetime is unconscionable. As I said earlier, when my grandfather was in the 3rd or 4th class of black students permitted at the University of Maryland School of Law, the tuition was $200. That was the late 1950s. By 1970, it was $400. And again, today, it would be $2,600 if you kept up with inflation. What's happened since 1970? Mass incarceration has happened. We have 2 total institutions crammed full of 18 to 35-year-olds that are supported by the state. One is our public universities, the other is our state penitentiaries. And as governor, I will make sure that we get our priorities back to what they used to be. We used to have We used to reserve prisons for the truly dangerous, some people who were addicted to rehab. Nazi prisons as the panacea. And we used to spend a lot more on educating our students as a percentage of our budget than we do now. And we'll fix that. And it's urgent, because when you talk to young people, what you find out is that we have kids who on the one hand are coming out of school far more debt than they expected. By the time they get through 4 years, by the time they get a graduate degree, I've had a woman who wanted to be a librarian. She's $150,000 in debt, 39 years old in her mom's basement, afraid that Social Security will be docked to pay off her student loans. And it starts with making sure that our community colleges are as affordable as possible for our young people. We get that right, the snowball's small.
Thank you. Mr. Ross.
So I think that we can do more to make community college affordable in our state, both through increased resources from the state. You've heard me say a couple times now, 1%, less than 1% of the total state budget going into community colleges relative to what you are asked to do is not enough. The question, there was another part of the question, there was what additional alternatives would you look at to help achieve affordability? The way I was able to afford college coming out of coal country was working as a midnight janitor, working on a beer truck. And for many of your students, it's folding bed sheets, it's bussing tables, it's some other kind of labor. What I would seek to do as governor is leverage that office to do the kind of work that I demonstrated I can already do through my company, through my nonprofit, where we partnered with companies like Apple, like Google, like lesser known but local companies to help create a pipeline into the industries of the future. And the model that could work for community colleges in Maryland, I believe, could be a variant of the Central European model, where employers will pay for the cost of community college in exchange for some agreement to work for the company at a good wage for some period of time. It works to beautiful effect in Central and Northern Europe. And while we Americans, we oftentimes think we are the center of all innovations, I do think that we can look abroad for how we bring people into the industries of the future and how that can partner with our institutions of higher education.
Thank you. Mr. Kamenetz.
Well, each of you know very well the disturbing trend in the reduction of both federal and state aid to education. And it is disturbing. In Baltimore County, we have always funded at or above maintenance of effort. But in fact, we even did a supplement a year ago, I think, to make sure that there was no increase in the student share of tuition. But the real way of examining state aid is this fact. Our state universities get $1 and serve 160,000 Marylanders. Our community colleges get 22 cents and serve 500,000 Marylanders. There's something wrong with that formula. So I don't begrudge our state colleges for the sums that they get, but we have to recognize the dollars and the value and the investment when we have state funding. The other part is to increase the investment opportunities for revenue for our community colleges. So you talked about the Fab Lab, the innovative lab we have in our Catonsville campus in Baltimore County. We also train airplane pilots how to fly a plane, and we also train people how to obtain a commercial driver's license. So it's opportunities to get people to come to our community colleges by the course offerings and therefore enhance revenue. We worked with CCDC. We took an abandoned steel mill at Bethlehem Steel and we're creating 17,000 jobs with the likes of Under Armour, FedEx, and Amazon. And we're now working with CCDC to create a commercial driver's license center at that location so that it helps with their employment and it helps with the revenue for CCBC and provides a needed service. So these are ideas that are out there that we should continue to do statewide.
Thank you. Mr. Madalena.
I'm gonna take a chance and realize that this audience is a more in-depth, sophisticated audience with this type of information. So I'm gonna put aside some of the rhetoric that I would normally use here and say, look, we are going to have to revisit the CAVE formula during the next 4 years in regards to how it fits with the recommendations of the Kerwin Commission. As we have more dual enrolled students coming, who are going to be starting, if all goes well, who are going to be trying to do associate's degrees through their 11th and 12th grade, that means a different relationship between the state, the school system, and the community college, where the aid is going. It's going to be in a different conversation about financial aid. So it would be easy for me to say, oh yes, let's go back to the promise of the CAVE formula. But the CAVE formula is from a few decades ago. It does reflect a different relationship between the state, the colleges, higher education, and students. So we're going to have to revisit some of the relationship, the responsibilities, the funding, and you want, I think, someone who has been at this for a while, who has the institutional knowledge to help come up with the new vision for how we go forward. Because we need to get it right. Because we do have a unique opportunity coming now to figure out a new approach that gives us not just the best school system, and by school system I mean P20, the best school system in the country. We need to have a school system that's putting out young people to compete with the best in the world. And we can do that with right planning, the correct investments, and the political will to get it done. And as your governor, that is what I'm promising the next 4 years are going to look like. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vignarajah.
So I come to this question with a little bit of baggage because as Michelle Obama's policy director, one of our initiatives was Reach Higher. And so what we wanted to make sure was that every child had access to a 2 or 3 year college, but also that the community colleges could bear the burden in terms of hoping that there would be increased demand. And I will tell you, Joe Biden would say this during the administration, if you want to know what your priorities are, look at your budget. Right here in Maryland, we spend 4 times as much on prisons and policing as we do on community colleges. That's clearly not right. And so part of why I decided to, learning from my experience working at the White House, make sure that I focused on community colleges, because I know that this is the easiest way we can provide opportunity, but in a way that is a win-win for employers as well. And so what I have proposed are 3 main facets. One, I want to make sure that we are guaranteeing free tuition and fees covered at all 16 community colleges here in Maryland. But second, I also want to make sure that we are addressing the fact that for some of these kids, even little things like transportation are take a toll on their personal wallets. And so I also proposed, when I announced free community college, that I would also create a micro grant program that would be provided by the state that would provide transportation centers. Because I know that here in Maryland, what we see is that there is a very elastic pricing when it comes to whether people can actually afford community college. Meaning that for every $100 that our colleges cost more, you see a reduction, a decrease in enrollment of 0.5 to 1%, which means that people are obviously incredibly cost sensitive. And sadly, in our state, an affluent state like Maryland, we still have some of the highest costs when it comes to community college. And so as governor, it is absolutely something that I will address. But the other part of it that I want to make sure that we're doing is also providing opportunities to mid-career employees. Because this is where community colleges, as I think you've heard many times, they provide workforce development. And so I will make sure that private partners also play a role.